This is a DP, the Dark Podcast. When you gaze into the abyss gazes back into you. And when the abyss gazes back into you, you gaze back into the abyss. Anything within the darkness shines within the light. Read the screen. Alright, so this is basically just another kind of pre-sequel or a sequel about Stranger Things and how it just breaks down the truth per se with the visual. Anyways, so when you're observing or witnessing Stranger Things, the one thing you have to be aware of is, as announced in the previous episodes, that all of the characters with psychic abilities or psychological abilities that seem to be what mortals refer to as abnormal to them and amongst them, it's very common. But the thing is that most of the ones that are displaying those abilities already have a predisposition. So their predisposition is that they usually have a deeper concentration of gamma radiation within their brains. This is when the brain hemispheres harmonize, and the alpha, beta, and as well as the theta part of the brain is basically in sync. So it activates a part of the brain called the gamma, and the gamma is a combination of the beta, theta, and the alpha part of the brain. So the gamma part of the brain is a deeper psychedelic state of mind. So there's a difference between psychotic and psychedelic. Psychotic is what in New Age they refer to as descension. So it's basically where the mind is literally having a psychological breakdown. So when, for example, if you were surviving psychological warfare and you somehow were not deeply connected enough with yourself, within your psyche, within your mind, what would happen is you have a psychotic episode. Or if you're not just connected deeply enough with yourself, as in your soul, within your mind, or just your soul period, you would have a psychosis. And that the difference between that and a psychedelic episode, or being in a psychedelic state of mind, is that a psychedelic state of mind is when you're actually ascending. So you're basically you're deep enough within yourself, within your mind, as in the opposite of psychotic and the opposite of psychosis, or basically a stage of psychosis where you've deeply connected and tuned in with your soul within your mind so much that you're connected, and your attachment with your soul is deep enough to the point where you're not having a breakdown, you're having an enlightenment, an awakening, basically. That's what it's referred to in mysticism. So if you study mysticism, it'll make more sense as to how psychedelic states of mind, being, awareness, activation, triggers kind of occur, how that works. So when your psychic abilities are deepened, as what mortals refer to as heightened, you're having psychedelic episodes. This occurs when you take artificial substances like drugs, when you take filtered substances, even if they're normally considered holistic and herbal, like weed, or edibles. And edibles are artificial, synthetic, that can put you in a psychedelic state of mind. Shrooms, there are organic forms, but if it's filtered, it's not organic anymore. It's just natural. And then there's the DMT drug that's literally called DMT. And then there's other forms of drugs that put you into different psychological states of mind, like Adderall, depressants, shit like that. They're all psychological drugs, but they alter the state of mind that you're in. Psychedelic is referring to the depth of the mind, the connection that you have with yourself within your mind. So it's like it will shift your state of awareness. So from one state to another, and think about being connected with yourself to access or to be aware of the dimensions, the deeper dimensions within the mind, is that you should not be altering your state to depress or to shallow your awareness, but to basically deepen, or what Mortals refer to as increase your awareness. That's referred to as self-awareness versus, not versus, but in contrast to self-consciousness. So they want you to be self-conscious. That's why they give you Adderall and fucking depressants and shit, Atomoxine, Benadryl, shit that's gonna fuck up your brain so you don't enter that psychedelic state of mind. And then if you are in that psychedelic state of mind, well, they call that and you're basically shifting between a shallow state of mind and it's basically a psychotic state of mind and a psychedelic state of mind. They call that manic, because you're mentally unstable due to your lack of, or not your lack of, but because your mind is basically shifting between states of consciousness. And what's happening is that you're disturbed because you're not grounded within one dimension. You're grounded, or all dimensions of the mind which you exist in. And basically you already exist in all dimensions. Reaching a deeper, or basically being self-aware, deeper and deeper and deeper, allows you to be aware of the dimensions of within the mind that you already exist in. These dimensions are different states of mind, basically, are referred to as different states of mind. I guess you could put it, if you want to simplify it for someone who doesn't really who doesn't really study psychology or neurology and shit like that. So neurology is basically the physiological study of how the brains, basically the one in your dome, the one in your head, the one in your heart, and your gut. It's kind of like how it works, and how basically your state of awareness interacts with your vessel. Okay, when you're in that state of mind, and then you have psychology, which is how the mind interacts with itself, and then you have mentalism, which is basically how the spirit interacts with the mind, and then so forth, and then you have mysticism, which is going more, which is why it's not even this why it's not announced as much, versus spiritualism or spirituality or whatever, because that goes more into how the soul interacts within the mind, or with the mind, as it is in the mind. So being that mortals don't have souls, they don't usually study mysticism in the context of how the soul would interact with the mind, because like that would be a different perspective from how they view, the mind, which is from the spiritual point of view and not the mystical point of view. Okay, so this in Stranger Things, this is basically just breaking down why the girl 11 has telepathy, psychic abilities like telekinesis, as well as why she also has another psychological, they refer to it in psychology as psychometry, where she's able to enter the subconscious state of mind, which is also the gateway or the realm and dimensions within the mind that basically you can visualize it as a portal to within the mind, as a gateway to enter the underworld. Okay, the underground, the other